Hi everyone, welcome to Laguna Beach Living. Today I'm here with Cristina Cappelli, who is a local real estate agent and has a holistic approach to real estate. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Same. I'm really excited to have connected with you. Facebook is an amazing place, and that's definitely where I found you, just through mutual friends. And I was so curious when I saw somewhere that you had a holistic approach, because it was something that I thought about a lot. And I wonder, in my own life, I have a water filter and I have all these things that matter to me. And I have EMF protection and I place crystals in places and I do these things, but I never thought of a real estate agent offering that advice to people. And I still don't know exactly what you do, but I'm so excited to hear more about your approach and how you fell into that and what that looks like.
Wow, so that's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
How I fell into it was, so I was an attorney, I practiced real estate law, then I valued pools of distress loans. So I did all the most technical kind of aspects of real estate, ones that didn't involve a ton of interaction with clients. And when I went to purchase my own home, I could not find one realtor who had any idea what I was looking for when it came to health. When you think about the fact that you can only control so much of your health, right? There's a lot of things out of your control. So if you can control the one thing that most affects your health outcome, where you live, why wouldn't you give it any thought? So to me, I think it's crazy that more people don't think of it. And so it was the first thing that I thought of when we started looking for our own home. And my realtor provided me no assistance in that regard. So I had to do all the research myself, which was actually quite difficult because I was working. I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old at that time. So
let me interject here real quick, because you moved from New York. Mm-hmm. And at the time, were you into wellness in New York as well? Like, what made you start thinking about this?
My children.
Yeah.
Okay. You have children, and all of a sudden you think of things that you all of a sudden have some kind of an interest in what the future world looks like, mm-hmm. that you hadn't thought of before.
Yeah. So then you started getting into, like, what was the first thing that you started thinking of when it came to where you lived?
So the first thing for anyone, wherever you live in the whole country, is you don't want to live on a EPA designated Superfund site. So that means that the government found this site to be hazardous and harmful, and that it has to be cleaned up. So a simple search can kind of move you away from those areas. Shockingly, in Orange County, there's homes that are worth well over $1 million and multi-million dollars on those hazard waste
like
sites
Newport
or
Coast,
near them.
Right?
So not necessarily. So Newport Coast is a fairly healthy place in comparison to a lot of the other Superfund sites in Orange County.
Wow. Like where?
So right now, so that's another thing is active, right? Some of them are active.
Okay.
So right now, the North Basin site, which is kind of where Fullerton and Anaheim meet, is actively trying to be cleaned up because the EPA has stated that it is affecting the soil, the water, and the air of where it's located and surrounding cities. So that's really shocking, right? What we know of when the government says something is unsafe, it's usually really, really bad.
Exactly.
So yeah, that would probably be one of the worst places right now.
Wow.
To live. And then, so once you figure out the Superfund site, which again is fairly easy research, anyone could do it, just Googling it, then you want to make sure you're not by a landfill. So there's the Irvine landfill, and then there's the San Juan landfill. I believe the San Juan one is the biggest one. And people are also buying multi-million-dollar homes when you could smell the garbage. I don't know why. They're not working with me.
Yeah. So. No one's thinking about that. No one cares. But so when you started buying your home, this was just a natural a natural thing for you. You had kids and you were just.
Yeah, well, it's like I said, it took me a lot of work, right? Because nobody knows all this stuff. There's no education program, although I am working on one to teach other realtors, but there's nowhere that anyone would know any of this information unless you figure it all out for yourself.
Yeah.
And so I'm still learning, and a lot of information is hidden, so you have to kind of try to get information from your local planning department, and that has seemed to be really difficult.
So landfill, what else?
Okay, so EPA designated Superfund site, no thank you. Landfill, also no thank you. The huge, ginormous power lines, we know that they emit EMF, right? If you have an EMF reader, but I mean, you could just look at them and think like, wow, that does not look like an amazing, electrical structure to have right above my kid's bedroom.
Yeah. And for people who don't know what EMFs are, what is that?
It's basically radiation, kind of like the same wave as a microwave. So the microwave, you put it on and you don't see anything, but the food is super hot when it comes out, like something is happening with these microwave waves. And so I don't know everything about that, but I recently hosted a 5G wireless informational with Daphna Tatchover, who does know all things Wi-Fi. And so she was a great resource. Thankfully, we got the news to come cover it, which was great, and hopefully raise some awareness. I know a lot of people who are actively fighting 5G in their towns.
It's also difficult. I mean, I live here in Southern California, and I'm so curious, like, not a lot of towns in Laguna, it's a big conversation, but not a lot of the other towns are even sharing where they would be putting them, or I can't find that information in somewhere like Corona del Mar.
Yeah.
Do you know how someone can go about finding that information?
So I always say you just go there and you talk to someone. You just show up at your local planning department and you ask them questions. And it's really hard. A lot of parents and residents have made some progress with like halting them or trying to change where they're located, but the rollout has been pretty swift, and I don't think that we've made as much of an impact as we would like to.
So then so we'll talk about some of the things to look into, and then some of the ways, like for EMFs, how you also recommend if someone already bought a house in that area, for example.
Well, so that's another thing, right? So you don't know, you can find out where a huge cell phone tower is. And so you don't want to live next to one.
Yeah.
Like that's also an easy search for someone like me to do. You want to live at least a quarter mile from any cell phone tower at a minimum. So with 5G, those are small cells. They're going to be everywhere if the way it rolls out will be how they intend. So, I mean, that's just going to be a whole different world that we're going to have to figure out how to navigate.
Yeah, how to find them, because they're every like 500 feet, right?
Right. So what I tell my clients is, yes, we don't know what will happen, but you don't want to buy a house with a light pole in front of it, right? Because then there's a right of use already. So
That's
there's
so
just small things that someone like me who thinks about everything might
would
be able
know.
to pick up. And there might still be issues, but to not do the most basic research is just...
Like being close to a really busy street that might potentially...
highways, right? Because highways is just a ton of smog all the time. So you don't want to be close to major highways.
So highways is another one.
Yeah.
What else?
So
Airports?
Oh, yes. Don't even get me started on airports.
I want to hear all about it, because I was researching about like just being near John Wayne and LAX, and I'm so curious.
Yeah, well, it's the same kind of radiation, right? You hear about when you're on the flight that there's the radiation. And so if you're right below an airport, it makes you more at risk. And it means that there's a highway close to you, and it means that it's a high trafficked area, highly densely populated. So that's just not a great place to be.
It also matters, I've read, with like wind patterns. Is that right?
So the truth is I don't know all things. Like wind patterns, you're really throwing me for a loop right there.
Getting really intricate here.
But but it's something that like I would look into for one of my clients, right? And that's another thing about offering a holistic approach is like I don't have to agree with you in every regard. I don't have to share the same fears as you or any of that. I just have to be willing to listen to your perspective and then to try to do the best that I can. We live in a world of alternative options, and real estate is kind of stuck in the past in that regard.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited just to, have someone in this area that is passionate about this because it's the first I'd ever heard of anyone doing this.
Well, thank you. So, right, so I was a lawyer before and I had a pretty successful career. And so I have a much broader vision of doing this in that I really hope to influence developers to create healthy developments, right? Because now I'm kind of that lone ranger trying to find that healthy home and like a sea um, of hazard issues.
Yeah.
Whereas a developer should be able to create a whole healthy community, right? Another issue is high pesticide usage. There's some developments that, well, actually, some developments and some cities that are just out of control with the amount of pesticides that they use, and the residents are outraged and requesting change, but their demands are just pretty much being ignored. So that's another issue that you would want to factor in when you're looking for a home, whether or not it's high pesticide usage. And then you have people who move to Irvine, for example, because it's a non-toxic city.
It is?
So it's non-toxic in that
They don't use Roundup or something?
public areas like schools and parks have decided not to use glyphosate, which is fantastic. Zen of Moms Across America kind of handled that. She's amazing at what she does. But when you move to Irvine, you still have to understand that individual developments, most of them spray pesticides, and that's where you spend more of your time, right, than at the public park.
Mm-hmm.
So you still need to be concerned even in the non-toxic developments.
In the cities, yeah.
Exactly.
So it's like kind of weighing your options, I'm assuming, in a lot of the stuff that you do.
Yes, and especially because budget, right? Not all of us have an infinite budget, so that's always a concern too. But you could just, in 100% of the cases, you could pick a healthier option, right, than another if you just simply put in that extra work to determine the factors.
Wow.
So I've reached out to developers recently and in the past, and I always kind of get the same thing. They say that people don't want these healthy developments.
That they don't care.
No, they say that they don't care, that they want golf developments, they want equestrian, that the demand's not there. And I think that in some regard, they are correct in that most people have never even given this the thought,
Yeah.
But I hope as we raise awareness, thank you for having me here, more people need to learn that this is an option and it's something that you should be demanding of your builder or your development.
Well, what are some other things if you're moving into an area that's or a home that is a new development? I mean, aren't there so many things in terms of the paint, right? I mean, just what's it called? Like off gas from that?
VOCs, right?
Yeah.
So most new developments are using low, non-toxic paint, I would hope, right? They certainly should be.
Or like drywall molding and just all sorts of things like
So
that.
yeah, a lot of people have had issues where they purchase a new development, a new home in a newer development, and later they find out that this brand new beautiful home has mold inside the walls, and that's usually because the spray foam that's used today, which should work well if you don't let it dry, then it never dries and it gets boarded up. And because they try to build these developments so quickly, that's an issue that unfortunately I know some people who have had to deal with.
Yeah, and how do you find out? I mean, when you buy a home, would you be able to, if you had someone come inspect it, they would be able to tell right away? Or is that something that takes time with the new development?
So I tell my clients that are buying new homes to go there and say like, hey, I want you to make sure that you let what's your typical dry time? Well, I want 5 more days. And so that's what I want when I say that, when I make the offer before it gets accepted. And usually they're like, fine, they don't even see what, the issue would be. But then you find out what day that's happening and you just become more interactive in your building process. So
Yeah.
you just have to stay on top of them, really.
And you go visit on
Mhm.
site and make sure. I see. And so, when someone, like you were saying, you had kids and you were talking about how you don't want like these poles and stuff like right above your or right near your children's bedroom or something. So, what are some other things that someone should look into near their kid's bedroom?
Well, definitely the cell phone tower, right? One easy kind of way is if you don't know how to do the research online, or if you're not working with a realtor that's proficient, most schools have cell phone towers on them. So if you don't live, right, I talked about protecting your child. That's usually where you
I
could
think I
find
saw
them.
that in the news that a lot of parents were outraged when they found out that because there were a lot of children getting, a lot of children are getting cancer and getting
Hmm.
sick from these cell towers, the 5G ones, especially
Hmm.
being at school. That's so sad.
I know. And so schools always have like two or three of them. It's just like these massive towers, and it's another way for them to make money.
That's so sad.
It really is.
Like they should just not have to worry about making money. They need to just worry about educating children.
Totally.
So, so in terms of EMFs, obviously that's a big one.
Yeah, so I have an EMF reader. And so whenever I take clients out, I just bring it with me and we could see what the EMF is reading.
How
Typically,
big is that?
the reader, it's just like this.
So anyone could just buy one.
Hmm.
Are they
Yeah.
expensive?
No, um, I think the one I have is like more high end, but you could get one for under $200. One that Daphna recommends, and she, like I said, she's the one who knows all things. She led a Supreme Court um, decision in Israel to ban Wi-Fi from children's schools, and won.
Wow.
Yeah, so she's just like the most
And you
incredible.
connected with her?
I did, yeah. I just reached out to her and I asked her if she would be willing to do this informational. And we had 100 people sign up, which was really surprising. I was kind of shocked. And what was even more shocking was that at least half of them were men. And so typically with the wellness
Yeah.
world, it's more predominantly women based. So I was really pleasantly surprised to see how many men were interested. And then the news showed up. So that was great because I didn't really seek them out. But it turns out that they are hypersensitive to Wi-Fi concerns because now they have to wear like a belt around them, like a Wi-Fi belt,
They do.
so they could transmit. It used to be on the truck, but now it's like on them. So yeah.
So they're like, please
I
help
know.
me.
Yeah. What is this and how do I stay safe?
That's terrifying. I know someone the other day was like, there was someone that, like, I don't know why, slept with her phone near her breasts and then, like, literally showed up with cancer, like, right in that specific area. And it's just obviously we know that this isn't healthy for us. So there are things that we need to do the research to learn because it's also a big part of our lives. So how do we find the balance between using and having access to Wi-Fi and also keeping ourselves safe?
So the easiest thing that you could do is shut off your router at night. So easy, right? So that's half of your life that you don't have the Wi-Fi emitting throughout your entire house.
Yeah.
So easy. And then what else oh, and then if you could remove your smart meter from your home,
Yeah.
that's always a good little way to further protect yourself. So yeah, it is small things. You
And
just
like
have to be
putting your
conscious.
phone on airplane mode, I know is helpful, but then it's, everyone is attached to the obviously like security of having it in case there's an emergency and we don't have house phones anymore. But
So a lot of people hardwire everything, and those people are amazing. I'm not one of those people.
I know.
It's, so if I ever built a home, new construction, I would totally hardwire it, right? Because it's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a deal anyway, but it's definitely a bigger deal than unplugging your router at night, which is what I do.
Yeah.
So if you could hardwire your whole house, and I know a lot of people who have, they simply plug their phone in and then they use the Ethernet on their phone and could still keep it in airplane. Those people are my heroes.
I know. It's amazing. It's crazy that technology isn't that old, but it seems like so long ago.
So see, a developer could quite easily just hardwire a house where you had a Wi-Fi Ethernet cable in every room. I mean, how great would that be?
I know. They just don't do that anymore.
No, they never really have. You would have your Wi-Fi provider do it, and even then they just did it in one room, right? So you would have to pay someone an
Yeah.
alternative. And there are more people who are providing services like building biologists. They're amazing. If you ever want someone to give you a full health rating of your house, building biologists kind of know it all. They have taken the courses and they could give you the mold reading and the Wi-Fi, EMF, and water, test your water, all that good stuff.
That's incredible.
hmm
Building biologists. How do you just Google that,
Yeah.
or who do they work for? It's just
Usually they work for themselves. Yeah, they're building biologists. And the demand is definitely growing because when I first started doing this, there was only one, and now there's like 4 or 5 of them in our area. So that's pretty good.
I'm sure you know all of them.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I like to promote just healthy business providers for sure.
What do you think is the safest place to live in Orange County?
Ooh, that's a really tough one.
I'm sure there's so many different factors, but
There really are. There's a bunch of safe places. Newport Beach has some by the water, is usually good. Laguna Beach is great. Like Dove Canyon, Coto de Casa, that side where you're closer to the mountains. It's kind of nice when you have some kind of natural landscape preventing more building on one side of you, right? So that's always a pretty easy, or even where the 91 meets
yeah.
right by Orange, your Belinda, those kind of areas are pretty good too. But like I said, literally in every single city, let's say you're right on the North Basin, hazard waste site, there's one house that's better than the other based on, considering all the other factors. And then so that's another thing that I try to look into for my clients, which is like well above and beyond my job description, is like I'll find out what school they intend on sending their kids. And some people don't care, right? So they won't even ask me. But if they do ask me, stools, sometimes you could find out a lot of awful information about them. Like there's one stool, I don't want to say it, just because I feel so bad for the people who send their kids there and don't know or don't want to know. But it used to have rocket fuel on it. And so when they were building it, a lot of people argued against it and pleaded to prevent building anything. And then they built an elementary school, right, of all things. So
who decides where these elementary schools are being built? I mean, why don't they do the research with these building biologists?
Well, because it's developers, and the developers want to build
on cheap land.
Yeah, and that's why they keep going to like these more undesirable places, the newer developments.
It's so unfair.
It's like all sad things right now.
Yeah.
But
it's positive to have someone like you that's an advocate that they can use as a resource, which is incredible. Do you have a website?
So I kind of held off on my website and branding because I wanted to trademark holistic real estate, and I just found out today that I met all the requirements, so it hasn't been approved yet, but awesome, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm going to start building on that. But I really wanted holistic real estate, and I'm so thrilled that I was able to get it before.
That's huge.
Thank you.
That's
I found that today.
Huge. You training a bunch of other real estate agents to look into this and creating that. I mean, the demand is there, but creating the demand or showing that there is a demand to other real estate agents, I think will also spread it to the developers. And
we
and
just need more awareness.
Yeah.
A lot more awareness.
There's a whole movement that's going to start. I'm excited.
Hope so. Me too.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I'd love if you could share how people can find out about you and just contact you.
So you could just look me up, on the internet. Good old Google, Cristina Cappelli. I'm currently with Bullock Russell Real Estate Services, and my office is in Rancho Santa Margarita, but I cover all of Orange County. And yeah, I hope I could help some people find their healthy homes.
Thank you.